Welcome to the Rochester, New Hampshire History Podcast, a monthly show that will shine a light on a piece of history that has been all but forgotten.
On Wakefield Street stands Spaulding High School. It was built in 1939 and is one of the most beautiful high school buildings in New England. Did you know previous to 1939, Wakefield Street was also the home of Rochester High School? It was the city's public high school in the early part of the 20th century. To understand the origin of Rochester High School, one must go back to the 1800s. Back then, Rochester students never had a permanent high school. They were shifted around to existing schools and took their classes in buildings that also housed elementary grade students. The old Main Street School, the Maple Street School, and the Allen School, at one time or the other, was used for high school classes. In 1898, Mayor William Bradley advocated for a brand new high school building, and by 1900, the city budgeted money for a new high school building. In addition, money was also budgeted to purchase the Solomon Evans House on Wakefield Street. This beautiful house was moved, and Rochester High School was built on the vacant lot.
In 1901, the new high school was completed, and according to the city's annual report, some of the biggest expenses were $23,600 paid to the contractors McGuire and Penniman, $3,000 paid to the Allen Fire Department Supply Company, $1,200 paid to William Walker and Son Architect, $93.86 was paid to the Boston and Maine Railroad for freight on all the new student desks. The brand new school was a 3-story brick building with separate doors for boys and girls. The girls used the doors on the right side of the building, and boys used the doors on the left side. This would be the last time a Rochester school was built this way. Schools built after 1901 permitted boys and girls to use the same entrance and exit.
The school's basement was 10 feet high and contained restrooms, was also used for gym classes. Back then, public transportation for Rochester's high school students did not exist. If you rode a bike to school, you would wheel your bike down a ramp and store it in the basement. The third floor contained an assembly hall. The high school did not have a cafeteria, as there was no need for students to have lunch, since the classes were only from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. The school did have sports teams, but lacked athletic fields and a basketball court. The basketball team played in the City Hall auditorium. Baseball games were played at the Rochester Common, and football games were played at Cold Spring Park. In 1926, a vocational building was built next to the high school to teach industrial arts.
Despite the new vocational building, the school was overcrowded. To find extra space, the assembly hall was converted to classrooms. The assemblies and graduations were held in the nearby Rochester Opera House in City Hall. Also, by the late 1930s, Rochester High School, which was built at the turn of the century, was considered rundown and did not have the resources required for a 20th century high school education. In 1939, Spaulding High School was built on Wakefield Street. It was a modern, red brick building with imposing white pillars, and it replaced the old Rochester High School. After more than 30 years of use, the Rochester High School building was demolished and disappeared from the city's skyline. Today, a church resides in the spot where the old high school was.
This ends the podcast. If you have any questions or comments, please email bobgriffinpodcast@gmail.com and come back next month for another episode of Rochester, New Hampshire History.